Welcome back everybody to Moderate Mods, and yeah, today we're dealing with the 1965 Ford Transit, and you might be thinking, why on earth would you ever mod a classic Transit? Well, this is a classic car in several ways. It was revolutionary for commercial vehicles, and yeah, it's being a classic car, it's something that has been preserved through time, but if you wanted it to be the workhorse that it was originally, you definitely need to update it for modern times, because you know, packages that are delivered are far heavier than they ever were back in the day, and you obviously need to take a greater load as well in terms of the number of packages as well in this day and age of online shopping and the like. So yeah, you're gonna have to upgrade this car to deal with that kind of thing, and also deal with modern traffic as well, because this is no sprinter in a lot of ways, to be honest. It's really not all that quick whatsoever. It was quick for the time when yeah, the motorway speed limit in the UK hadn't even been implemented and the like, but these days, yeah, it would not be very good at merging in traffic or anything like that. So yeah, let's first see what it can do in its stock form. It's D-Class 100, which means it's easily one of the slower vehicles on this game, but not the slowest. It's got 73 horsepower, 91 pounds-feet of torque from its 1.7 litre V4 engine, which is another reason why I picked this, because it's got a unusual engine. Only one other car I think on this game has a V4 engine, and that's a Lancia Fulvia, but it does weigh 3,527 pounds, which is a hell of a lot for a 73 horsepower car. But it does have 52% weight distribution, front 48% rear, so it's very nearly well balanced, which is pretty key when you're dealing with a van that is going to have weight shifting around in terms of its load. So yeah, let's, like I said, first see what it can do in terms of its stock form on this circuit, and then we'll get into the garage and rate it. So I'm gonna have to change to manual, because yeah, this track does need the vehicle being changed enough in terms of gears, otherwise it won't have the power, because it's got this hilly section here which is not favourable to a slow automatic vehicle, as you will see. So yeah, we ain't got the best launch here. We're gonna have to keep it in first and rev the nuts off of it until we crest. There we go. So yeah, that's one reason why we need a manual gearbox, is for that hill. Plus we'll also need it to make the most of what power it has. Won't need to do this once we upgrade it. Again, that's the reason to upgrade it, is to make it more usable, user-friendly in today's driving scene, or driving conditions. But it does handle reasonably well for a £3,500 60s car. One thing that was notable about this car when it was introduced was it was based on car steering, car handling, car suspension and the like, so it felt very car-like, rather than vans of old that literally did feel like tanks to drive in a lot of ways, because they had heavy steering, heavy poor braking, poor handling, whereas this was able to keep up with the likes of a Mini from this period. So yeah, which is one reason why this was so popular with bank robbers, because it was such a good handling car, and yeah, it could fit several people in the back and whatever loot had been stolen. So yeah, it's got a good basis to really upgrade this to a more modern standard. And the reason for having the V4 engine, by the way, is to maximise interior space, because obviously a V4 is very, very short in terms of its length, certainly more so than a inline 4 ever would be. But yeah, 1 minute 57.267 is our first lap time, easily the slowest car that we've had on this series so far. But I think the Bar 595 was as slow as this, because even though that has less power and less torque than this does, it was also significantly lighter. Yeah, it handles perfectly well obviously the chassis and the tyres and the brakes hot really being put to through their paces, because this car isn't all that quick. But you know, considering it's a van, it's from 1965, it doesn't handle half bad. You'd certainly some cars from normal cars, saloon cars, hatchbacks, whatever like that, would handle pretty poorly in comparison to this from the same period. So yeah, it's not all bad whatsoever. Took it into the corner, handles really rather well. No oversteer, no understeer really. Yeah. Has a reasonable amount of torque, which it really needs when you're dealing with a van. You need all the torque you can get. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to pull whatever loads that you're going to have. 1 minute 45.489 there. 12 seconds quicker than our first lap time, which is pretty good. Let's see if we can do any better on this final lap. Just keep it in third, keep that power going. Even though it does have a 5,000 RPM rev limit, it can go higher than that if necessary. Downhill sections certainly help this car get going. Need to change gear there. Anticipate we're going to have a far better lap time in our upgraded version, which I guess is inevitable given that we're easily one of the slower vehicles, but we are going to improve on our final lap time there. 1 minute 44.671, which is pretty good for a car of this size and weight, and obviously not having all that much in the way of power. But nonetheless, let's get to the garage and see just what we can do in terms of upgrades. So this is the van in all of its glory, and as you can see, yeah, it's quite a well-designed commercial vehicle, to be honest. You have free seating for free up front. You got the nice step upwards. You got the sliding front doors, which would inevitably get removed eventually and used into normal doors in later versions of the Transit. But yeah, because they would prefer sliding doors on the side for getting in and out of the side. But yeah, and it's also got plenty of space in the back, which is what you need from a van, and a completely flat floor as well, which is also really good. But since we are keeping this more as a commercial vehicle than turn it into a race vehicle or anything like that, it's gonna have to deal with its original suspension, which is not going to be getting any stiffer with anti-roll bars or anything like that. And we're not going to be able to change any engine-wise, change the engine, because as you can see, we've got ridiculous levels of power from the engines that were being chosen. 300 horsepower is our minimum, which I think is even too much even for this vehicle. So we're going to keep the standard engine. We're going to turbocharge it though, because the main thing for this car is torque, to deal with the weight that the vehicle has itself and whatever it's going to be carrying. So we're going to upgrade the torque by a substantial margin. Give it a street air intake. Give it a street carburettor. Give it a sporty ignition. Won't do the exhaust because this is a van after all. Street valves. we'll whack the cylinder, engine block all the way up to a race block to make it a 2 litre. I know it says race block, but it really isn't. It's just pretty much just making it a stronger and bigger. So we've got 115 horsepower now. We'll give it street pistons, sporty turbo, just to get that torque even more up. We'll give it a sport intercooler so it can deal with all that extra turbo, and we'll give it a street oil and cooling. Obviously, it only gives us an extra horsepower and an extra pounds-feet of torque, but it does make it an even number. So yeah, 130 there and 162. Give it a street flywheel to make the engine rev a little bit freer. We'll upgrade the brakes to sport brakes just to help deal with the extra speed that it's going to have going on. We'll knock a bit of weight out. We'll get rid of the spare wheel, any tools, and make it have a lighter battery. Right, we're definitely going to have to upgrade the gearbox, because as you can see we're only able to do 88 mm at the moment. We're not even able to break 100. So we'll give it a street transmission, which hasn't worked for some reason. Why aren't these working? I have no idea. We're going to have to upgrade the cams. No, that's not even working. To be honest, I really wouldn't want to do that, to be honest. Right, we're just going to have to give it the street transmission. I know it ruins the acceleration and the launch for whatever reason, but there we go. We'll knock some more weight out of it, and then we'll widen the tyres. 215s at the rear, 205s at the front. Can't do anything good in terms of bodywork, as you can see. It's just moving bumpers or whatever else, which are irrelevant. So there we go. We'll install that. So now we've got 130 horsepower instead of 73. We weigh 23 or 50 pounds or so less, which is pretty good. And we're going up 19 PI, which isn't a drastic amount clearly, but it's only cost us 21,850 credits, which is fairly good. Yeah, this vehicle could only do 71 originally. I forgot to show you the original acceleration times, but it can certainly go a lot quicker now to 60. I have no idea why the gearing is so awful. I fear we're going to have to go for a racing transmission just to make that better. It's not what I'd normally do, but in this instance it's going to happen, just so we can make the car have a reasonable, well, the van have a reasonable top speed. So just shorten the gears. Will that work? Lengthen the gears then. Nope, this van is not having any of it. Strange. Right, we'll just stick with the street transmission then. I imagine going all-wheel drive would probably solve that issue, but whatever. There we go. We'll keep it at that. So we can now do 0 to 16 17.138 seconds and 88 miles an hour. Could only do about 71 originally, and probably closer to a minute in terms of 0 to 60 time. I can't remember. I guess if we just save it and we'll find out. Always forgetting to do this. Done it on an episode or two ago. Do apologise. Come on. Alright, 31 seconds to 60 and 71 miles an hour. So yeah, we've definitely improved it in terms of its acceleration time overall. But yeah, for whatever reason I couldn't upgrade the top speed anymore, which is a bit of a shame. But it's still certainly faster in terms of top speed. You got 17 mile an hour actually in terms of top speed, and we're nearly twice as quick in terms of 0 to 60 time. Still not massively quick, but will be quicker around the circuit nonetheless, and it's certainly a more usable vehicle on a day-to-day basis. So let's get back onto the circuit and see what happens. So yeah, we're still in D class, which obviously isn't going to make this the quickest of upgraded vehicles that we've had on this series, but braking wise and speed wise it's better. I'm pretty sure the acceleration is slightly better as well. I think it was 3.4 originally. It's the gearbox that has really made the acceleration not as good, because as good as you might imagine for the extra power that it's got, purely because it's turbocharged now, and that gearbox really does make the launch a little bit worse. But you know, we now have 130 horsepower rather than 73. We have 162 pound-feet of torque rather than 91 or whatever it was, and we weigh 50 pounds less. So yeah, even if it's not got the best launch ever, which to be honest really doesn't matter, you don't want to be roaring away off the line in a car in a van like this, because you know, if you're going to be carrying anything, you don't want it flying into the rear doors or whatever else. So yeah, keeping it a leisurely off the line is fine. As you can see, it's not all that quick. Let's get in there, come on. Turns out that upgrading a van isn't quite as easy as you would expect, but this launch is really the only poor part of this car that's been upgraded. It wasn't great originally, to be honest, either, but considering the power that it's got now, you'd expect it to be a little bit better. Yeah, for whatever reason the gearbox, or the upgraded gearbox, just makes it worse or whatever. Maybe it'll be better with the original gearbox, but that's for you guys to check out, because yeah, this series is all about inspiring you guys to see how little you can do to a car to make it better. And as you can see, this is already better because it's holding a higher rate of speed around this part than it could originally. It'll certainly have a higher rate of speed on this straight or any other area. Maybe the turbocharger wasn't the best thing to go for, but I really did want to emphasise torque over horsepower with this car, or van. I keep calling it one or the other, but you know what I mean. A vehicle like this really does need the torque to make it usable. That's why it had more torque than horsepower in stock form, and generally why vans have more torque than horsepower nowadays, which is helped by the fact that they have diesel engines. Shame we can't swap the Super Sport van diesel engine in this. That would have been more ideal, to be honest, because that would have been a reasonable amount of horsepower, not 300 or 500 horsepower or whatever, but also kept it with Ford, because obviously the Transit name has only ever been with Ford. But yeah, 1 minute 42.703 is our first lap time. That's more than 2 seconds quicker than our fastest lap time in the stock vehicle. But yeah, I really would have liked to swap that diesel engine, because it would have, yeah, really helped to make this the classic looking Transit, but with a modern engine underneath. And it certainly would have helped speed wise as well as economy wise, which again is something that these vehicles are all about. Better economy, the more money goes to the driver rather than into a petrol or diesel pump. Handling wise, it's definitely better as well, just because it has wider tyres. Obviously we didn't upgrade the suspension by lowering it or give it better anti-roll bars to make it stiffer, purely because the stiffer and lower the vehicle is going to be, then the less weight it will be able to take in the back. Always amazes me when I see lowered vans. It's like, really, what's the point? You're not going to be able to get much in the back of that anymore, because obviously the more weight the vehicle takes, the lower the suspension goes. And if you've already lowered the suspension, then you're going to be able to put far less in that back of the van. So yeah, it really never makes any sense to me. But there we go, 1 minute 27.521 seconds on our second lap time. Massive increase over the first lap. Again, probably because of the launch isn't all that great. And it's, yeah, more than 17 seconds on our quickest lap time in the stock version. As you can see, the suspension is still quite soft. it's rolling a fair bit through the corners. But that's the whole point. You really don't want a stiffened up van, because you really won't going to be able to take all that much in the rear. And to be honest, it still handles really rather nicely anyway, despite the extra power and the extra speed and acceleration it's got going on. Obviously, if I were going to do this again, I'd look at trying to make the launch better and make the acceleration off the line better. But I ain't going to be running around trying to try every avenue with this vehicle. Try out the one area that I try out, and then you guys can hopefully work out where to go better in a different direction. No improvement on that final lap time there, but 1 minute 27.521 it does make for a far better lap time than the stock vehicle had, and certainly makes this a far more usable van in a modern environment, because yeah, when you're pulling out to a motorway you need all the speed you can get, and yeah, you don't want to be slow on a motorway anyway, so yeah, I think we've done a fairly good job here. Obviously it could be better in terms of its launch and in terms of its overall speed off, overall acceleration off the line, but outside of that it's really rather good. It's definitely quicker to 60, it's definitely quicker at the top end, it's definitely better in terms of handling, and yeah, has more mid-range clout as well, so yeah, on the whole I'm fairly pleased with it, but like I said, you could definitely go in different directions to make this an even better vehicle than I have made it. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.